For sure, we know by now, all of us should know that all employed as well as self-employed persons must be registered with national insurance and pay your contributions. Once you're earning more than $21 in any week, we expect you to register and become insured. Persons under 16 and over pensionable age, they are only entitled to get the employment injury benefits. All other persons, they'll be entitled to all the other benefits. Self-employed people, they're covered for all the benefits and pensions with the exception of the employment injury benefit. So that's if they get injured while doing their job, they do not get an employment injury benefit, but they will get a sickness benefit once they meet the qualifying conditions. And likewise, they would not get the disablement benefit because that follows an employment injury. They're also not entitled to unemployment benefit because basically they do not contribute anything towards unemployment benefit fund. All right, the National Insurance Board is an entity that is a corporate body. It looks after the National Insurance Fund. So all the monies in our fund are managed by the National Insurance Board. We also manage two other funds, the Severance Payment Fund, as well as the Unemployment Benefit Account. And those are the funds from which severance and unemployment is paid. You will note we have some contribution rates here. For government workers, we pay a little bit less if we are appointed because we don't qualify for certain benefits. So I am an appointed government employee, so I will not get an unemployment benefit because you would know it here, I do not pay anything into that portion of the fund. Then we also have the private sector workers and the statutory boards, and you will see how they pay their contributions. They do pay into the unemployment fund. So when they become unemployed, they are entitled to unemployment benefit. Self-employed people, you would note what their contributions go into. They pay national insurance, they pay a contributory pension, they don't pay anything to the unemployment fund, they don't pay anything towards employment injury nor severance. That is why they're not entitled to those benefits. All right, so this is the benefits that we pay at the National Insurance Office. We divide them into short-term benefits and long-term benefits. And you will note that your unemployment benefit here is falling under a short-term benefit because basically that is what it is. We pay you for a short time and then that's it. Whereas the long-term benefits go on for the most part until you die. All right, so I will focus now specifically on the unemployment benefit. All right, so these are your requirements as an employer. You must, on the date of termination or layoff, give that employee his termination of services layoff certificate. That's the green form. Well, we know that with the COVID situation now, we may not have everybody come into your place to get that form, and you can email them also. We will accept the email copies of that form. The law also requires that you submit a copy of that form to the director. So you must send the director a copy via email as well within 2 weeks of the day off date. So we have the customer service, customer.service@bginis.gov.bb. That email address is available for you to send your copies to. And I must note here that you sending that copy to customer.service@bginis.gov.bb is not an application for unemployment benefit by the employee. We'll see in the next slide what the employee must do. As it is right now with the COVID situation, we know that people were laid off for a period of 2 weeks, but now that has been extended by the Right Honorable Prime Minister. So most people are going to have a new expected date of reemployment. In this situation or any other situation where you have given an employee a date of reemployment or an expected date of reemployment, sorry, and that person is not reemployed on that date, you must give the person an extension termination of services certificate. That is a termination of certificate which gives the new expected date of reemployment. If there is no new expected date of reemployment, you will just leave that field blank. But we are not going to pay past the first expected date of reemployment unless we see a new termination certificate which extends that expected date of reemployment. So please pay attention to that. However, if the employee is reemployed, there is a form which we have online on our website, which you go and you complete. It's called reemployment of employees form. So you'll find that on our website on the forms page. So that's what you as an employer, that's your obligation. The employee, on the other hand, must make his own application. To do that, he must make his application within 2 weeks. Forgive that error, that typo visit make. He must make his application within 2 weeks of becoming unemployed. Failure to do that is going to result in a disqualification period. So please encourage your employees, even if it is that you were not able to give them that termination certificate on the date of termination, please tell them, just go ahead and make your application and we will send you the certificate via email, via post, however it is that you choose to send it to them. And as I said here, he must make his application whether or not he has received a termination of services certificate. And this is an issue we get quite often where an employee comes a month after and says, oh, I only now get my green paper, they will tell you. Or 2 months after, I now get my green paper. It does not matter when you give them that green paper. Yes, the law says to give it to them on termination date, but even without it, they are supposed to come and make their claim. They must do that within 2 weeks. All right, after he gets that form, on the website, there is a unemployment benefits form on our forms page where, if possible, because I know everybody does not have access to a printer and all of that, but if possible, he can print that form, complete, sign it, and he scans it and sends it back to us along with a scanned copy or a photo of his green paper. If he's not able to complete the unemployment benefits application form, he will simply send the scanned copy of his termination certificate, the green form, to employeeu3forms@bginis.gov.bb. So this is the way we are making applications for unemployment benefit right now. You're sending a scanned copy of your application form, if possible, along with a scanned copy of your termination certificate to this email address, employeeu3forms@bginis.gov.bb. Note, this is what the employee does. Employers, you send them to customer.service@bginis.gov.bb. As an employee, you also have to, if you are unemployed for a period of more than 3 weeks, you need to go back to the website and complete the unemployment declaration form. So every 3 weeks, you go to our website and you complete the declaration form. That is the employee saying to the director, hey, Mr. Director, Mrs. Director, I am still unemployed. I've been available for work and looking for work, but there was no work available. So that must be done every 3 weeks. If he becomes unemployed, there's a section of the same unemployment declaration form that asks for relevant details concerning his reemployment. So it asks for the name of the employer, the address of the employer, and the date on which he was reemployed. Because you as an employer may have laid off an employer with an expected date of reemployment, but probably, he thought, well, I'm not going to go back to work with them because work is not so certain, but I'm going to go to work because I found work elsewhere, which is more certain. So it may be that he goes to work with someone other than you during that period. So he tells us, yes, I went back out to work. All right, there's some important terms that I need to go through with you before I can start to explain to you about qualifying for unemployment benefits, because these are terms that you're going to hear me using as I speak to the qualifications. So I'm going to explain to you about relevant quarter. I'm going to tell you what are insurable earnings. I'm going to let you know what are the average weekly earnings, and we're going to have a little chat as well about credited contributions. Okay, so I'm going to speak to you about relevant quarter, and I know this is an area where we get a lot of questions, so you can start jotting down, typing your questions. For national insurance purposes, it is not a case where, oh, I work and I pay contributions for the past, whatever, and I'm going to get my benefit. No, it doesn't work like that. National insurance, we divide your calendar into 4 3-month periods. Each period we refer to as a quarter. So we have a quarter, January to March, April to June, July to September, October to December. So those are your quarters. In order to pay you unemployment benefit, we're going to look at when your benefit is payable from. So right now, let's go with the situation now with COVID, where the Prime Minister decided that on the 3rd of February, whole island has to shut down. So people are going to be making claims for unemployment benefit, let's say from the 3rd of February. Okay, so that is referred to as our benefit payable quarter, the quarter January, February, March, because February falls into that first quarter, January, February, March. In order to determine if a person qualifies for unemployment benefit, we are not going to look to see if he worked in that quarter. We're not going to look to see if he worked in the quarter just prior to that. And if you note my screen here, that's the quarter October to December. We are going to go to the quarter just before that one. So basically we're going back 2 quarters. And in that quarter is where we're going to look to see if this person qualifies for unemployment benefit. So you become unemployed in February. Your relevant quarter, that's the period we're looking at to see if you qualify, is the quarter July to September. For unemployment benefit, we do ask for a little bit more than that, because along with that relevant quarter, July to September, we are going to look at the 2 previous quarters to that quarter. So for unemployment benefit, any person who becomes unemployed now in February, we're going to look July to August last year. And in that period, I'm going to discuss this as we go on further, but this is just to help you to understand what we refer to as the relevant quarter. So July to September, we're going to look for 7 contributions. And also in the period just prior to that, 2 months prior, 2 quarters prior to that. So that is January to June. Also, we're going to look during that period, and we're going to look right down to July to September. So in 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter, so that's the period January to September, we're going to look for 20 contributions. That is equal to basically the person worked 20 weeks during that period. Yeah, we're going to come back to relevant quarter because that is a mouthful and this is also a little bit challenging, I know, for somebody who is not familiar with the national insurance. So that is what your relevant quarter is. It's basically we go back 2 quarters from the quarter in which the benefit is payable. Here's another example. So let's say the person is unemployed April, May, June. They came off somewhere. Let's say they're going to come off in May. The relevant quarter, we will skip January to March, and the relevant quarter is October to December. I think the next few slides is basically that, showing you that, going through that with you. Here again, the benefit quarter is July, August, September. Relevant quarter, we skip April to June, and the relevant quarter is January to March. And here again, if your benefit quarter is October to December, your relevant quarter is April, May, June. So just remember that. We're not looking at your current quarter. We are going back at least 2 quarters to look for your relevant quarter. So that's a brief explanation of what relevant quarter is all about. All right, we need also to tell you about the insurable earnings. There's a limit on which we at National Insurance ask you to pay contributions on. We have a minimum and also a maximum. So the minimum that we ask employees to pay contributions on is $21 in a week or $91 in a month. So if you bring somebody into work and you are paying them, let's say $90 a month, because they're only coming in and working a little hour probably every other day, and you only pay them $90 in a month, you do not have to pay national insurance because we do not ask you to pay national insurance on anything under $91. Same thing with a weekly earnings. So you bring in some person to work, the person only works, let's say an hour for a week, come in and do some little brief something for you, and you give them a $20 bill. I don't know how many people are gonna accept that these days, but let's say you give them a $20 bill to come in and work for you for 1 hour. You do not have to pay national insurance on that because that falls below the minimum weekly insurable earnings that we ask you to pay. On the other hand, the maximum insurable earnings for this was from the effect from January of 2020, the maximum insurable earnings are $1,126 weekly. So if a person earns more than that, you are only going to pay national insurance contributions on $1,126. So you may have an employee who you're paying weekly and you're paying him $1,500 a week. National insurance is deducted and paid only on $1,126. And bearing in mind, all his benefits and pensions will be calculated only on that amount. Monthly maximum with effect from January 2020 was $4,880. So here again, you may have your general manager at your business who is working for $20,000 a month. He's only paying national insurance on $4,880. So his pensions and benefits, one of them being unemployment benefit, will be calculated only on $4,880 a month. And we need to bear that in mind because we have had some questions where persons who earn maximum, above the maximum earnings, and when they get the benefit, they're a little bit puzzled as to why this is all that they're getting. So please encourage I'm encouraging you to let your employee, remind your employees that this is what they pay national insurance on. So this is what their benefits will be calculated on. Okay, so let's talk about the average weekly earnings because this is something you're going to hear as we speak today quite a bit. All right, so I spoke to you about relevant quarter. So you have your relevant quarter. Right now, anybody who becomes an employee, the relevant quarter is July, August, September last year. However, we know earnings fluctuate and a person could work 1 week for $1,000, the next week it could go down to $200. So what we do, so as not to disadvantage a person, is to calculate an average of their weekly earnings in the relevant quarter, and that's what we will use to calculate the benefits. So to find the average weekly earnings for any employee, what we're going to do is we're going to total the earnings in the relevant quarter, and we're going to divide that by the number of Mondays in that quarter. Most quarters you will find will have 13 weeks. However, there are some quarters where you find, depending on how the years fall and the Mondays fall in that year, some quarters may have only 12 weeks and some may go up to 14. However, if you are weekly paid, we are going to divide by the number of Mondays in the quarter. For monthly paid persons, we always divide by 13. So once you're monthly paid, we're going to total your earnings and divide by 13, and that will give us your average weekly earnings. And it is these average weekly earnings which we use to calculate your benefits. Okay, so we go on then to talk about credited contributions, because you will note that I will speak of credited contributions when I go to talk about the calculation of benefits and the qualification. Okay, so we have something that we refer to as a credited contribution. This is what I call a gift from the director, where if we pay you a benefit and that benefit runs from a Monday to a Saturday, note what I said, it must run from a Monday to a Saturday. So we pay you a benefit from a Monday to Saturday. We are going to award you what we call a credited contribution. You may not have a contribution that you paid in from your employer, because your employer is one that does not pay you when you are off. So you were off on sick leave for the whole month of January. Your employer did not pay you. He said, oh, go to national insurance, get your money. We pay you benefits for the month of January. And let's see, January this year had 4 Mondays. So we will pay you award you, sorry, for credited contributions once we pay you a benefit for the month of January. Please know also that these credited contributions that we award you, they take precedence over any contributions that you have paid. So let's say the opposite. You were on sick leave for the month of January, the entire month of January. Your employer said, oh, I know national insurance, they have quite a lot of work in there. Sometimes the benefit takes a bit long to come, so I'm going to pay you. So he pays you for the month of January. Most employers will have some kind of arrangement where you will give them the national insurance check, but that's not our business. That's the business of the employer-employee. However, you submit your claim to us, and we also pay you benefit for the month of January. So your employer paid you a salary from which he deducted contributions and for which he sent us the earnings schedule saying to us that you were paid for the month of January and how much you were paid. We award you a benefit. And we also awarded you some credited contributions. For any time that we are going to use that month of January in the calculation of benefit, we are not going to look at the earnings that were submitted by your employer. We basically going to ignore your earnings. And what we're going to do is that we're going to use the earnings that we awarded as credited contributions in the calculation of your benefits. So just bear that in mind also. So your employer might have paid you, let's say $5,000 for the month of January, but we awarded you contributions and your contributions were let's say at the rate of $500 weekly. That's what we're going to use to calculate your benefit. All right, and you will note that these credited contributions are also used to help persons to qualify for the benefits and their pensions, because you may have not worked for a period, but we paid you some kind of benefits and we awarded you credited contributions, and those credited contributions then can help you to qualify for the benefit, because the benefit may say you need 7 contributions in the relevant quarter, 7 contributions either paid or credited in the relevant quarter. You might have only worked and paid 5 contributions, but we awarded you some type of benefit for another 5 weeks. So you have your 5 paid contributions and your 5 credited contributions, and that will help you to qualify for your benefit. So they are used to help you to qualify, and they're also used in the calculation of your benefits and pensions. One thing I must note, and since we're on the topic of unemployment, I am going to emphasize this. We are seeing too often where employees are being paid earnings for periods that we are paying them unemployment benefit. That is a definite no-no within the national insurance. Unemployment benefit is paid if you are not working. If we see earnings, we can only assume that you worked. So no earnings are to be reported after the person has become unemployed. Anything you have to give that, any monies you have to give that person, everything must show up in the last week or the last month that the person worked for you. So please pay attention to that, because we have that as a very big issue in 2020, and it may come up again that we are processing these 2021 claims. So bear in mind, nothing must be reported after the week or the month in which that person became unemployed. All right, so we go on to talk about the qualifications for unemployment and tell you all about unemployment benefit now. So unemployment benefit is basically paid to a person who has become unemployed because he has some interruption of his earnings. There's a second condition where if you keep a person on short time and they suffer some loss of earnings, however, note that must be more than 50%. We're going to go into the details of that later. That person is also considered to be unemployed. But we're going to go and talk about short time a little bit later, because that's a lot to talk about at this point in time. All right, so we talk about the qualifying conditions now. So to qualify for unemployment benefit, the person must be over 16 and under pensionable age. And I will talk about pensionable age a little bit, because you will know that national insurance now, we can start paying a pension from as early as 60. our standard pensionable age is now 67 years old, but a person can claim the benefit from as early as 60. So let's say you have an employee who determined, well, you should not have this scenario, but just in case it comes up, you have an employee who made his claim for his pension, early pension at age 62, and he worked with you, but bear in mind that is not allowed, because if you have some person who is claiming an early pension, that person should not be working. So that is something you as an employer must look out for. But let's say that the scenario did happen and that person did claim their pension early. When that person makes their claim for unemployment benefit, they will not be entitled to unemployment benefit, because even though they have not reached standard pensionable age of 67, they are claiming a pension from us at 62. And bear in mind, when we would discover that, we're going to ask them to pay back all that pension as well, because they broke the law. Because if you get an early pension, you're not entitled, you're not supposed to be working. That's law. So person must be over 16 and under pensionable age. Second condition, they must be insured for 52 weeks. That's basically they've been working and paying contributions for at least 52 weeks. Third condition is that during the relevant quarter, and you see the relevance of saying the relevant, explaining the relevant quarter now. So during that relevant quarter, the person must have 7 contributions. And here's where we can see the credited contributions coming into play, because you must have 7 contributions paid or credited in the relevant quarter. So I become unemployed now in February. My relevant quarter is July to September 2020. During that period, I'm looking for at least 7 weeks where I have earnings, paid in or credited contributions from the director. And for unemployment benefit, then there's a 4th condition as well. In the 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter, so we have the relevant quarter is July to September, 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter takes us back to January of 2020. So from January of 2020 to July of 2020, you must have at least 20 contributions. And here again, these contributions can either be paid contributions or credited contributions. That's a mouthful. So basically, over 16 under pensionable age, being working and paying contributions for at least 52 weeks, at least 7 contributions paid or credited in the relevant quarter, at least 20 contributions paid or credited in the 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter. So these are your conditions to qualify for unemployment benefit. So somebody might come and say, oh, but I was working for the past 10 years, but they fail these contributions, they're not going to get these conditions, they're not going to get the unemployment benefits. So you may have a person who, let's say, was working with you for 10 years, but during the period July to September last year, they went on no pay leave. They had some emergency and had to leave the island, and they didn't pay a cent in contributions for July to September last year, and they're off now. Unfortunately, that person is going to fail bullet 3 here, so they're not going to qualify for unemployment benefit. All right, unemployment benefit is payable basically for a period of 26 weeks in a continuous period. So you can get your 26 weeks as one straight period, and that's the end of it. Or you can have a 26 weeks broken up in a 52-week period. So in a 52-week period, you can get 26 weeks, but it does not have to be continuous. Okay, and after you have, because this is one that I guess will come up quite a bit during this period again, after a person has used up all the 26 weeks of benefit, so basically you got all your 26 weeks in a 52-week period, whether continuous or broken up, you must, in order to qualify for benefit again, you must satisfy all the qualifying conditions that I mentioned earlier, where you must be insured for 52 weeks, you must have 7 in the relevant quarter, you must have 20 in the 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter. So you must satisfy that first of all. If you satisfy that, basically what will happen is that you will have to, we call it wait, basically until 52 weeks from your last date of payment on your previous unemployment claim has passed. So let's say you got 52 weeks, you got your 26 weeks of unemployment benefits, say, let's say up to April last year. You got 26 weeks of benefit within your 52-week period. You are not going to be entitled to unemployment benefit again until April this year. You can submit your claim, but we are not going to pay you until April of this year, because we have to wait until 52 weeks from the last date you were paid until the start date of this current claim. We do disqualify some people. They qualify, they meet all the qualifying conditions, but we take away some money from you if you do not meet certain conditions. So if a person has lost their job because of the misconduct, if they've resigned from their job, if they refuse to apply for some suitable employment which has become available, we can take away up to 6 weeks out of their benefit. There are more conditions than these, but these are the ones that we will come across most regularly. Sometimes as an employer, you may get a call from a national insurance officer asking for some details concerning what you have written on your termination certificate. And these are the reasons why, because we have the right to take away up to 6 weeks out of that person's unemployment benefit if they do not meet these conditions that we are satisfied based on our judgment that he did something to contribute to his own misconduct. He just decided, look, I fed up with this job. I'm done with this job. I'm going home. I get my 6 months unemployment benefit, those kind of things. So you will occasionally get some calls from national insurance officers who will ask you for some further details on what you write on your termination certificates. Other disqualifications: if you're out of the island, if you've submitted the claim late, if you're getting a pension from the employer, yes, please pay attention to this, because sometimes we get determination certificates where employers have failed to answer this question for us. And especially if the people are borderline, your employees are borderline on 50 something, 60, where they're entitled to a pension from you because you have a private pension plan going for them. So please pay attention to that, because we are not going to pay them unemployment benefit if they're going to get a pension from you, or if they are receiving a pension from you, and we don't pay for the periods of imprisonment. And these are just a few of our disqualifications. And once a person is disqualified or disallowed, the director will inform him in writing of the decision. So let's say the person lost his job because of some form of misconduct. We have an interview with that person. We also speak to the employer, and based on the evidence that we have, we think there was some form of misconduct that led to that person's dismissal. We may make a determination we're going to take away 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks, whatever the case may be. The person is informed in writing. And after that person gets that letter, the person has the right to make an appeal to the Benefits Appeal Tribunal. So yes, we do send letters, and the person has a right to appeal any decision that the director makes unfavorably against him. Okay, so we go on to the calculation now, the meat of the matter. All right, to calculate unemployment benefit, as I said earlier, we total the earnings as well as any credited contributions in the relevant quarter. So the person is off here in February, we total earnings in the relevant quarter, which is July to September. We calculate the average insurable earnings to find out what were the average weekly earnings in the relevant period. We find 60% because the law says that we must pay 60% of the average insurable earnings in the relevant quarter. So that's your weekly benefit rate. And we divide that by 6 to get your daily benefit rate, because we do not pay for Sundays. So our national insurance week for short-term benefits, Mondays to Saturdays. So that's why we're dividing by 6, and that's your daily benefit rate. Easy. All right, so let's go to a scenario here. This employee is laid off with effect from the 2nd of February, 2021. His benefit quarter is January to March, which makes his relevant quarter. Remember, we're going to skip the quarter just prior, which is October to December of 2020. And we're going to look at his relevant quarter, which is July to September 2020. All right, so this is what his earnings look like during July to September 2020. He made a total of $7,212 during that period. And you would note that this person I have here, this example, this person is weekly paid. All right, so total earnings in the relevant quarter, $7,212. To find the average, we're going to divide by 13, because there were 13 Mondays in July to September. Remember, to find the average, we divide by the number of Mondays in the week, in the quarter, sorry. So we divided that and we got out 554.77. To find his weekly benefit rate, we might multiply that by 60%, which gave us a 332.86. And we divide that by 6 to get his daily benefit rate. So anybody who becomes unemployed now, who worked for that sum of money, will get a daily benefit of $55.48. Okay, so we're gonna move on now to short-time unemployment. In order for a person to qualify for short time, that person must be insured and must satisfy all the conditions that I mentioned in order to qualify for regular unemployment. So you must be insured for 52 weeks. You must be over 16, under pensionable age. You must have 7 contributions paid or credited in the relevant quarter. You must have 20 contributions in 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter. So unless you satisfy those conditions, you're not going to get either unemployment regular or unemployment short time. All right, short time benefit. This is paid to a person whose working days or hours are reduced. And please note, whose current earnings are less than 50% of his average insurable earnings in the relevant quarter. So we don't cut his current earnings by half and determine, oh yes, this must be short time. You can get short time from national insurance. No, we are looking at the average earnings in the relevant quarter. So please, please bear that in mind, because we have a lot of employers who are cutting current earnings by half and assuming that the person will qualify, more than half, I should say, and assuming the persons will qualify because they're saying, oh, but this is less than 50%, and that's what they said. But note, it is 50% of his average earnings in the relevant quarter. So that's you working with your employee, and you've put him on short time. Second condition is that your employee may have another employer, so he's working for 2 employers. If he is no longer working for the employer who is his major source of income, then he will qualify for unemployment benefit. So let's say I am working here at National Insurance, and National Insurance is only paying me $2,000 a month, but I have a job at UE which is paying me $10,000 a month. UE is my major source of income. So I have to be laid off or dismissed from UE, and my earnings cut by half to qualify for the unemployment benefit. All right, so we're going to tell you how to calculate short time. Again, we're looking at the relevant quarter, and we're going to total the earnings in the relevant quarter. Then we're going to calculate the average weekly earnings in that quarter. We're going to find 50% of the average weekly earnings in the relevant quarter, because remember, short time, you got to be less than half, less than 50%. Then we're going to calculate the difference between your current weekly earnings and your average weekly earnings. And we're going to find 60% of that. And that is what we will pay you on a weekly basis for your short time. So you're going to go into the example now, which will make it a little bit easier for you to understand. So I have an employee now, I'm reducing his week with effect from the 1st of February. So he's now earning $250 a week. That's his current earnings. That's what I'm paying you. That's all I can afford to pay you. Everything has gone down, so I can only pay you $250. I don't know, the Prime Minister might say that. I think there's something out there about a minimum wage now. I'm not sure. I didn't look at it, so I can't say if $250 is above or below, but we're going to work with $250 for now. All right, so he's earning $250 a week now. His benefit quarter is January to March, because he's unemployed in February. His relevant quarter, July to September. And these are what his earnings look like in July to September. He earned $68.72 for that period. So we're gonna have his total in the relevant quarter, $68.72. We're gonna find the average, and we divide that by 13. So he ends up with an average weekly earnings in the relevant quarter of $528.62. We find half of that, which is $264.31. Remember his current earnings. So in the week 1st to the 6th of February, I paid him $250. So I can definitely see, yes, this person qualifies for short-time benefits, because this $250 that I am paying him is less than half of his average weekly earnings in the relevant quarter. So he qualifies, so we go on to calculate. So his current earnings, $250. Average earnings in the relevant quarter, $528.62. We find the difference because that would be basically what his earnings would be used to calculate his weekly benefit rate. So we find the difference between the two, which gives us a $278.62, and we find 60% of that, and that's what we are paying him as a short-time unemployment on a weekly basis. And no, we're not breaking that down into a daily basis. We pay him for the week. Okay, we have a scenario how it is worked out here for monthly paid persons, because what I showed you earlier was for weekly paid persons. For monthly paid persons, remember, we're looking at weekly, average weekly earnings, so we have to break down weekly into monthly. So this is what we will do. So he is reduced again from the 1st of February. He's now only earning $1,000 in a month. His relevant quarter is July to September. So July to September, he earned $8,000. $2,000 July, $2,000 August, and in September we paid him. He worked a little extra and got $4,000. So his total earnings in the relevant quarter are $8,000. His average weekly earnings, we divide the $8,000 by 13 and we get a $615.38. We find half of that, which is $307.69. Remember, his monthly earnings for February, his salary was $1,000. We have to find out what an average weekly earning for February was, because we cannot calculate using orange and apple. We have to convert everything to a weekly earnings. So to convert that 1,000 to weekly, we multiply by 0.23077. That's basically breaking your calendar year into weeks and then subdividing into months. So basically, on a weekly, based on a $1,000, his weekly earnings for February would be $230.77. And we can see, yes, $230.77 is less than half of his average weekly earnings in the relevant. Okay, so his average weekly earnings for February based on $1,000 is $230.77. His average weekly earnings in the relevant quarter was $615.38. We do the same thing of subtracting his weekly now from his weekly in the relevant quarter, and we end up with a $384.61, and we find 60% of that, and that is what we are going to pay him, $230 as his unemployment short-time benefit. So that is a detailed information as to how we calculate short-time benefit. Important takeaway from that area is that, remember, you just cannot cut the person's current salary by half or more than half and assume that national insurance is going to pay, because we are going to look at his earnings in the relevant quarter. So if it is that you want to ensure that that person is benefiting from short time, you can do your calculation by finding his earnings in the relevant quarter and trying to cut by more than half of that. At least that will help you in some way. Just bear in mind that there may be some conditions where the person may have credited contributions in the relevant quarter and you may not know that. But if you go with that, you can say you're generally relatively safe by just looking at the relevant quarter and doing your average earnings in the relevant quarter and try to cut by more than 50% of that so as not to disadvantage your employees. Oops, sorry. Okay, another area that I need to mention that you need to pay some attention to, because last year we had a lot of this coming up, and this is for persons who are on short time, but who is at the maximum insurable earnings. Remember, very early up, I said to you that the national insurance, we pay contributions only on a maximum weekly and monthly earnings. So let's say we have an employee who is working for $1,400 a week. Remember, our current maximum is $1,126 a week. So you may say, all right, I got to cut him by more than half. I remember speaking to that girl at Claudette Moore from National Insurance. She said, got to cut by more than half. So you go and you do your calculation and you cut in the relevant quarter. He was working for the same $1,400, or I'm going to bring him down to $600. This is definitely less than half. Yeah, you're going to say that. However, You forgot that in the relevant quarter, even though he was earning $1,400, you only paid national insurance on 11/26. So you must calculate on 11/26. Half of 11/26 is $563. So in the relevant quarter, even though he earned $1,400, he only paid national insurance on 11/26, and half of 11/26 is $563. So even though you have cut his earnings down to $600, it is more than half of what he earned. Well, not what he earned, what he paid contributions on in the relevant quarter. So he will not qualify for unemployment short-time benefit. So this is something you must bear in mind with your weekly and monthly persons who are at the maximum. I'm not sure if it will really be profitable. If you all will have to look at it and discuss it, if it is profitable. Because if I, as an employee, earn $20,000 a month and you're going to cut me down to, let's say, $3,000 a month just that I can get short time, it may not be profitable. But just bear that in mind, that when you are dealing with your employees who are at the maximum insurable earnings, it is not what they're earning. You have to remember what was the maximum insurable earnings in the relevant quarter. Okay, we talk about how we pay the benefits now. So the person qualifies for the benefits, we calculate the benefits, we process the claim. We are now asking that employees, well, persons claiming benefits, to allow us to send the money directly deposited to their credit union or bank accounts. There's a form available on the website, which you can, it's a digital form, so they complete it. And then there's the area at the bottom where they can upload the banking information. For us, we're not interested in how much money they earn. We just want to see a part of the statement which can verify the account number, because sometimes we have people who are giving us incorrect account numbers. When we send the monies to the bank, they get sent back and stuff like that. So the area on the digital form that we are asking you to upload banking information, all we need to see is your name, the branch number of the bank, and your account information. This is our preferred option. Right now, we are not allowing customers in the office, so we cannot ask them to come in and collect the form, but when we are open back to public, you can also come in, collect the form, and you will attach then the banking information for verification of your account information. So that's our preferred option right now. Please note that we don't pay to third parties, because we've had some people who are saying they want their money going to Fast Cash, to, I can't remember what course, one, Ready Finance, those kind of places. We're not sending any monies to them. It has to go to your credit union or your bank account. We are still sending a few checks via post, but we are looking to phase that out. More and more people come online with the direct deposit, the less and less checks we will have to deal with. And you know, we are trying as far as possible to move towards the digital, especially in the light of COVID. So those of you who haven't done it as yet, you can fill the direct deposit form for us on our website. We have question section now, but just before we go to the questions, I'm going to ask you, if you need to contact us for any information at all, you can visit our website, www.nis.gov.bb. There's a lot of information there. We have a lot of documents which speaks to our regulations. We have guide to benefits. We have guide for employers. So there's lots of information on our website. We also have a contact center where our agents are dedicated only to take your calls. That's the only thing that they're doing for us right now, taking your calls. That number is 467-4647. So you can contact us via phone at that number. We also have an email address for your customer inquiries, which is customer.service@bginis.gov.bb. So any inquiries you have, if you're unable to get to us via telephone, you can send them to that email address. Pay attention to the email address which employees must use to make their applications. It's employee u3forms@bginis.gov.bb. So please ask your employees to submit their forms to us for unemployment benefit, their application forms where possible. and their termination of services layoff certificate, the green paper, to that address. Employers, you send your copy to customer service. Remember, you sending that copy to customer service is not the employee making an application. So please inform them to send their forms to employee U3 forms at BGI NIS to make their application for unemployment benefits. Okay, we also encourage employees to sign up for the portal where you can get access to your information. Your portal lets you into the national insurance system to see only your information as an employee, and you can verify all the information that's there. If you find something there that you can change, there are some things that you are able to change yourself. There are others that you will need to contact us and we will help you with. As an employer, you sign up for the portal too. There you can submit your earnings schedule, which makes life much easier for you. You don't have to sit down and write up these pink forms and blue forms and remember which one is which. And we also encourage you to use the Easy Play platform to pay your contributions during this time. So that's the end of my presentation for today. If there are any questions, I'll take your questions now. Thanks very much. And I trust that after this session, you will be much more informed.
Thank you very much, Claudette. We do have a couple questions. Okay, anyone who saw responses from Renee Waterman? Renee also works with Claudette. She is an insurance officer too with the National Insurance. Okay, so Claudette, I have one question here. Is the 52 weeks a continuous 52 weeks? Because we heard you mention the 52 weeks process.
Yes, that is a continuous 52 weeks. So let's say you exhausted your benefit, you paid, you received your three, if this is the correct answer, that I'm not sure if this is the question. If this is what you're referring to, if you have to wait for 52 weeks until you get benefit again after you're finished, yes, you must wait a full 52 weeks, 52 continuous weeks. Example, I got my 6 months of my 26 weeks of unemployment benefit, which ended in April last year. I have to wait a full 52 weeks from April, whatever date that is in April, 52 continuous weeks, and before I can get unemployment benefit again, provided I satisfy all the other conditions.
Claudette, also before you chime in, Leah, I just want to verify if those 52 weeks, does it has to be with the same employer, or it can be with 2 or 3 different employers?
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Any employer. It doesn't have to be the same. Okay. It could be a combination of employers, or it could be one employer, the same employer. It does not matter. Once we look and we find the contributions, we'll qualify.
Okay, so I hope that those answers actually answered the question clearly for you. Tanya is asking, can you go over how the 0.23077 is derived?
Okay, 0.23077 is the formula that we use to break down a monthly paid person into weekly. And basically, let me just pull up my calendar here. Let's say we have $1,000. You're not seeing my calendar, are you? Not calendar. So I have $1,000, and when I multiply it by 0.23077, I'm ending up with 230.77. This is, I am multiplying 1,000 by 52 and dividing it by 12. No, sorry, that's not correct. Let me get back to you on that one. I'll get back to you on that one, Tanya. I'll answer her.
Okay, we have another question from Sharon. Is it the employee or the employer that fills the reemployment of employee form?
Well, that form is to be completed by the employer. The employee, if he is reemployed, he fills the declaration form. The bottom half part of the declaration asks for details about his reemployment details. But let's say you're an employer and you laid off your 20 people because of COVID. you can send that form back to us, this form for the reemployment form, back to us. Tell us the date for all the 20 employees. But it may be possible where the employee may have gone back to work with someone else. So he has to tell us when he went back to work as well.
Okay, Sharon, I hope that answers your question. We have another question here. An employee opts for unpaid leave during the national pause, and the employee pays their portion of the NIS contribution. If, say, in October they're severed, will there be sufficient contributions for them to receive unemployment benefit without the company's contribution?
This is a question that is looking to me like I do not think it should be happening. If Derek is on, Derek can assist me here, please. But as far as I know, if you are on unpaid leave, why are you paying NIS contributions? Is it that you've become self-employed during that period? I would need a little bit more clarification on that, because if you are on unpaid leave, you're not getting paid. So you're not going to be paying any contributions. Because you are on unpaid leave, you pay contributions when you are being paid, your employer. So if it is it that they switch to self-employed during that month, that period, and if it is, then they will have to come into us and register as a self-employed person and then pay the appropriate contributions.
Okay, if the person requires, can place a little more clarity.
Hi, Leah.
Hi.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt you. And I'm jumping in on the call based on that last question. This is Sheena Mears-Granville, Executive Director, in case persons don't know who I am, at the BEC. Based on the question that was posed, what I heard was that the employee is paying their portion of the contributions. At this point, I would like to reinforce to employers that if that is the situation, that is not something that should occur. If as an employer you are reporting NIS contributions, then these should be on earnings made through your company, where you, the employer, would have deducted the employee portion, and you are also paid the employer portion into NIS. If an employee wishes to pay their own NIS, then they should go through the proper procedures and deal with NIS directly. That's not something that should be facilitated by an employer. So I just wanted to highlight that point based on that last submission.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Sheena, for that clarification. I hope that answers our participant's question. Another question that we have here: how much of an impact, if any, will no pay leave have on an employee's unemployment benefit if the employee requests 1 month no pay leave, then finds himself unemployed the next month?
Okay, as I mentioned, remember, for unemployment benefit, we're going to look at a relevant quarter. So if that no pay leave is in a relevant quarter, then he's not going to qualify for benefit because he will have 0 contributions paid or credited. If it is coming, like, as you mentioned just now, directly before he becomes unemployed, let's say for the month before he becomes unemployed, that should not impact him, because in that scenario, once he worked during the relevant quarter, he should have enough contributions to qualify. Just bear in mind, you always look at the relevant quarter, and the relevant quarter is the one before the one in which 2 quarters back from the one in which we are currently in.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. We have Maureen. Maureen is asking, once we have provided all staff laid off with a green form, do we, the employer, have to upload all scanned green forms to NIS via the customer service email?
That is correct.
Okay. So Maureen, I hope you have that customer service email. If anything, Claudette will reshare that with you so that you can always ensure that you have it in case you need to upload those forms.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Lena is asking, can an employer request a schedule of payments from NIS for its staff?
Derek, could you please assist us with that one? Okay, I guess Derek is not available. That is something that I probably will have to look into, because the process is that you as the employee submits that schedule to us, and it is done in triplicate. So you should have a copy of it for your own records. I will have to check with the relevant section to find out from them if it is that we ever give that information back to the employee. Because after you send it to us, I am of the opinion that's a relationship between now we and the claimant, the employee, if we want to call it that. But that is something that I will have to ask a question, and I will get back to the BEC so that they can respond to you.
Okay, thank you. I'm seeing one more question here. An employee who was on layoff from March 2020 until September 30th, 2020, returns to work on 1st of October 2020 until the 2nd of February 2021. Will they earn unemployment even if they have not used up all 26 weeks?
March to September sounds a little bit iffy to me in terms of using the 26 weeks, but if they have not used up 26 weeks, based on what you are saying, it sounds to me as though they should qualify, because during the relevant quarter, once we pay them unemployment benefit, we would have credited them some contributions. So they should have their 7 contributions credited in the relevant quarter. And in 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter, where we're looking for 20 contributions paid or credited, again, we would have credited them contributions because we pay them unemployment benefit. So that person sounds as though they should qualify. However, please bear in mind, let's say we pay them 25 weeks of unemployment benefit, then they're only going to be entitled to 1 week because they have not, within the 52-week period. Remember, we stick it within the 52-week period. So we started that benefit in March last year. So March this year, the maximum they can get is 26 weeks. So if they got 25 weeks, they're only going to be entitled to 1 week this year.
And then also based on that example that was given, if we use March 1st, 2020 to the 30th of September, 2020, and that's like around approximately 30 weeks. Therefore, so if a benefit was paid, the person probably maxed out their 26 weeks as at the 30th of September. So they may not be eligible to receive it.
There will not be, may not be. Once you have exhausted your 26 weeks, you have to wait a 52-week period before you can get benefits again. So September 2021 is when that person can look to get unemployment benefit again, provided they meet all the other conditions.
Okay, I have a question from Cliff. Cliff wants to know, an employee who takes unpaid leave goes back to work, goes back to week 1 of 52 when they return from leave, correct?
Could you repeat that for me, please? That's not quite clear.
So an employee who takes unpaid leave goes back to week 1 of 52 when they return from leave. Is that correct?
Goes back to week 1. That's a question in the chat?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I'm seeing it. An employee who takes unpaid leave goes back to 1 of 52 when they return from leave. That is not quite clear.
Okay,
that's
Cliff,
not quite clear. So if Cliff could explain that to us a little bit.
Yeah, or can you jump in on the chat, Cliff, to actually
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Unmute? Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead.
If an employee takes unpaid leave at week after 20 weeks of employment, when they come back after their unpaid leave, does the clock restart at week 1 or at week 21?
Oh, I understand the question. I think that's more a question. I don't know if Dylan can answer that or somebody from the labor office, the chief labor officer. That's not a question for the National Insurance Department. So maybe somebody else is available that can answer that question, but that's not a question for the Director of National Insurance.
You're very silent, Dylan.
Care to jump in on that one, Dylan?
I was going to say it went in and out on my end, so I wasn't clear on the question on my end.
Is Cliff there? Cliff, can you repeat the question for Dylan?
Yeah, so I have a situation where an employee who's been back to work for 20 weeks wants to take unpaid leave because they haven't earned any vacation time, takes unpaid leave for 2 weeks. When they come back to work, does the 52 weeks of continuous employment start back at week 1 or at week 21? They've been on the payroll, they just haven't been paid.
Well, in terms, and this is the eligibility for them to be placed back on layoff, or this is the eligibility for them to be eligible to receive an unemployment benefit?
It's for them to accumulate 52 continuous weeks.
So, right, so you want them to, sorry, go ahead.
If I understand what you're saying, the person has now been employed with you and they've worked for you for about 20 weeks, which is like 5 months, give or take, right? Yeah. They haven't, you're saying that they don't have any vacation time. I don't know if it's because your policy in the company right now is that they have to wait for the entire, they work with you for an entire year before they're eligible for vacation, because I know with the Holiday with Pay Act, you earn vacation, you accrue holiday time from the time you start with the company. So your policy may be that, you know, after they've worked with you for 12 months, then they would then be entitled to get their holiday. Fine.
Correct.
But the person is working with you, they're on your payroll and everything. They've taken unpaid leave, which is a request that you would have acknowledged and allowed.
Right.
So therefore, I don't think it is a matter of they having to break or start back at 21, because you would never have ended the employment relationship with that person. You allowed them that permission to take 2 weeks unpaid leave. So technically they're still your employee, and therefore the 52 weeks counting back, I don't think that would be accurate here. Now, if it is that, the question would be, if they come back from the 2 weeks unpaid leave, and for some unforeseen reason, you have to lay them off, I guess because of the national pause, or you have a diminishment in work, whether then they'll be eligible to claim unemployment then becomes the question. If they'll be eligible then to claim the unemployment benefit.
Correct.
Right.
If Ms. Moore and her department requires 52 continuous weeks.
Okay.
Right.
Well, then I can answer that part of the question, if that is the question that you are asking. Yes, we asked you for 52 continuous weeks of being insured. That person, if this is their very, very first job with you, this job with you is their very first job, and they've only worked with you for 20 weeks and they went off and they come back on, then that person would not be insured for 52 weeks because they have not been paying contributions for 52 weeks. However, if it is that they have been employed and working somewhere else before then, they will satisfy the condition for being insured for 52 weeks, because once we go back 52 weeks and we can find that first contribution being paid, that person will satisfy the conditions. But if it's the very, very first job and it's only 20 weeks that they worked with you and they went off and come back on, that person does not qualify because they would not have been insured for the 52 weeks.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Sorry, can I jump in? Just using the example the gentleman just gave, when the employee, because the 52 weeks is considered a continuous period, when the employee breaks his NIS payments for 2 weeks because he's on no pay leave and then comes back to work, is the count of 52 weeks now starting again?
Okay, let's get this 52 weeks sorted out, because I think I need to clarify that a bit, because we have more than one condition which we are talking about the 52 weeks. In my presentation, you remember I said your person must be insured for 52 weeks. That's the first condition that you must satisfy to qualify for unemployment benefit. Insured for 52 weeks, that just means that you must have been working and paying contributions for at least a year. So you might have worked back in 1970 and you didn't start back working again until the year 2000. You went home and look after your children, everything, they come back, come back in at 50 something years old and decide they're going to start to work. You were insured in 1970 when you started to work and pay contributions. So there's that 52 weeks. Insured for 52 weeks means that you just were paying contributions for at least 52 weeks. So that's the 152 weeks that we're talking about. If we're talking about qualifying for national insurance benefit, for the unemployment benefit, sorry. Then I'm hearing the continuous period of 52 weeks. That only comes into play then you are unemployed and has exhausted your benefit and you're looking to claim again within 52 weeks. So you're looking to claim benefit after you have used up all your 26 weeks of benefit. That's where we have to look for a continuous period of 52 weeks. So there are two distinct 52-week periods we're talking about.
And if I can also add, just so Tanya can try to understand your question, if you're actually talking about qualification for the benefit, or because there's a qualification by NIS standard for the unemployment benefit. And then remember, the Employment Rate Act speaks about, you know, continuous employment for more than 12 months. The only way then that employment is broken and not considered continuous is if there's a 42-day break. Therefore, a 2-week break would not deem that employment not continuous. So if the person went on leave for paid leave for 2 weeks, which you would have approved the request, and they come back to work after that 2 weeks, technically that's what, 14 days? So that does not break the 52 weeks, or that does not break the length of employment or continuous employment with the company.
Okay, thank you. Because yeah, I think people may be getting confused with the national insurance qualification 52-week and this 52-week that you're speaking to. Okay.
Much better informed now. Thank you both very much.
You're welcome.
Okay, we have a query from Jalissa. Jalissa wants some clarity. If you have a group of employees re-employed on the same date, can you complete one form or does it have to be individual?
Yes, please. This is one form. When you click on that form, you will see it's almost like a spreadsheet. So you can add lines accordingly, and you just send everything to us one time. It's not an individual form when you're doing it as an employer. If the employee is doing it himself, he can only do it for himself.
Okay, our next question, section 61B. Severance Act. Is this a question or is it a comment? Okay, yes, it's the question. Section 61B of the Severance Act, 16 weeks layoff in 26 weeks triggers severance, but the employee has not maxed out 26 unemployment. If the employee is laid off again for another 2 weeks in the 26-week period, can they trigger redundancy?
I am not particularly au fait with severance, but basically, as the person has said here, 16-week and a 26-week period does trigger severance. So from the time you hit 16 and 26 weeks, you are triggering severance. So basically you have triggered severance at first bullet. You don't even have to think about another 2 weeks. Once you are off for 16 weeks in a 26 weeks period, that employee can trigger his severance. However, if they have not maxed out the 26 weeks unemployment, after that 16 weeks, we can continue to pay them, as I said, for a 26-week period. It can be broken, yes, but in a 52-week period, we can pay unemployment benefit for a maximum of 26 weeks. So if he was only paid for 16 and he's off again, we can pay him for another 2, and he goes back out to work and he comes off, we can pay him as long as he doesn't reach 26 weeks, we'll continue to pay him.
And just to add to that, you're definitely correct, Claudette, because then there's the NIS regulation, then there's also the Severance Payment Act. So yes, the employee would be indeed entitled to make a claim to their employer to receive their severance. So we've had many instances where employees and the employers, you know, had their discussions surrounding, you know, you would have become eligible to claim at this point, but the employees were like, you know what, we're willing to stick it through with you guys. And we will continue to remain on layoff because we know we're going to receive additional unemployment up until 26 weeks. But what you must be cognizant of as employers is also the fact that even if you do receive a claim from the employee during that period, the employer may submit the letter. And I sort of usually help some of the employees with the letters that you can end up, you have 7 days as an employer once you are in receipt of that letter to indicate if you intend to resist or do not intend to resist the claim to pay the severance. And once you are able within 4 weeks, after you provide that counter, if you're able to provide work during that 4-week period, then the employee will not be entitled to receive their severance. So once you would have looked through or look at your projections based on availability of work and realize, okay, I can have this person back at work within the next 2 weeks or within the next 3 weeks, then you can write to the employee indicating such, and then that employee will not be entitled to receive severance at that point because there will be work becoming available.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dylan. I saw a raised hand from Kathy. Would you like to go ahead right now?
Okay, thank you, Dylan, for that clarification. And I think it's extremely important for employers to understand that, because I am aware that some persons will believe, yes, persons have what they might think is 6 months unemployment, but persons might have used up that 6 weeks within the 26-week period and thinking that they can continue to lay off and not trigger the severance because they think they have that buffer. But I'm glad that you would have expanded on the fact that even if it is triggered, that and I know, yes, you all have your template letters, which you would give persons to send out for the severance, and you have that week to respond. But sometimes it don't always go as smoothly as that because, you know, the employer might not get it within the 7 days. But I think employers need to understand clearly that if they go over that 16-week period, that severance can be triggered, and not to confuse what NIS would pay for unemployment with reference to that 6(1)(b) clause in the severance payment legislation.
Most definitely, Kathy. 110% agree.
Correct.
With you. Yep.
Okay, Shanice is asking if an employee is on short time for the period where we are on pause, but will be paid the agreed percentage for short time despite they're not physically working. Should the employee be given the U3 form, the green paper?
Yes, because that person should be, based on what I have explained earlier, entitled to unemployment short-time benefit, because it isn't that you have to be physically at work. You are still employed and you're working and your earnings are reduced by more than 50% of what you earned in the relevant quarter. You will be entitled to unemployment benefit. So that employee gives that person the green form, and make sure on that green form, because that's where the challenge is with short time. We need to know what the person is currently working for. The form doesn't give the provision for it, but if you can find some space on there where it says give relevant details, you can make a note. Employee worked for $100 during the week 1st to the 6th of February. Employee earned blah, blah for February, because everybody's not always up to date with their schedules, and we need those current earnings to calculate the unemployment benefit. We prefer that you submit your schedules and be up to date with them. If you get online with them, then you can submit them by the end of the month for the current month before the 15th of the next month, so that we have the earnings available that we can calculate the short time. But if that is not your position and you're unable to submit the schedule, then on that green form, just tell us what the current earnings are. And I must make a point here, I did not mention during the presentation, but I know that some employers may be having challenges with paying contributions at this time. Even for the year last year, some employers, it was a rough year. We know that, and you weren't able to pay your contributions, but we are kindly asking you to submit the earnings schedules, because it is those earnings schedules that are going to give us the earnings that we're going to use to calculate benefits. You can always contact your inspector, and the inspector can work out a payment plan for you in terms of the contributions. But please do not fail to submit those schedules, because you're disadvantaging your employees, because we cannot calculate a benefit unless we have those earnings reported.
And also I'd like to take this opportunity to also provide some clarity as it relates to short time versus reduction in pay. And we at the BEC have received, especially last year and now thus far for this period of national pause, we've been receiving a lot of questions pertaining to short time and then also reduction in pay, and persons sometimes get them confused as to how they become applicable. And Claude, I thank you when you made it clear in your presentation when you said that it's less than 50% your working day are hours. Well, which is different from you still having your employee working 8 hours a day, 40 hours a week, and then at negotiating with the employee to reduce their wages by less than 50% or even by 50% or 60%. There is a vast difference. And I also want to remind employers that you cannot unilaterally make those changes to persons' remuneration. There need to be mutual agreement established between yourself and the employee that they have agreed to terms and conditions of having a temporary suspension or temporary reduction in their wages. And we also implore persons to ensure they put a stipulated review date or stop date, because you don't want to leave the employees there in limbo wondering, when will I be reverting to my regular wages? And then you don't want to be in direct breach also of your contractual agreement. So I just wanted to reiterate that fact that there are two different things, short time and reduction in pay. They're treated differently. We're very cognizant of the fact, especially with short time, that it's just not a simple case of less than 50%. You may actually have to crunch some numbers to determine if the person is going to be eligible to receive or not, because I had many clients under my portfolio calling in stating that they received correspondence from NIS indicating that their employees were not eligible to receive short time, and they actually would have reduced the pay by less than 50%. So then we had to seek guidance on that as it relates to the guidance based on our last call, so that they could have seen, well, this is how the calculation actually works. Which draws me to my next question to you, Claudette. Is there a way for the employer, rather be on the portal, to receive those insurable earnings, the information you will be utilizing to do your calculation, and we retrieve that as employers so that we can also crunch some numbers to determine the eligibility for short time?
I am not so certain about that. I am not sure. That is a question that I will have to investigate and get back to you, because I'm not sure if after you submit them online, if you can go back and retrieve them. But I am somehow thinking that you should be able to, but I'll check with the portal team and I'll let you know if they can do that.
Okay.
Yeah, because we need employers to do that indeed, because we are finding a lot of employees who are being disadvantaged because employers are thinking that they are on short time. Well, they are on short time, but they don't qualify for short time unemployment benefits. So I will investigate that one and get back to you.
Thank you.
All right, so we have a question here. An employee who is currently on sick leave, will they be required to also receive a layoff certificate if they're being laid off, or does the sick leave have to end first?
That may be a question for the Labor Department, but I can tell you what will happen in national insurance if you claim sickness benefit and unemployment for the same period. So let's say you were on sick leave before the shutdown came. So you were receiving sickness benefit from us, and now your employer had to lay you off because of the shutdown. What national insurance will do is that we will continue to pay you sickness benefit. If it is that your sick leave has ended and then you are laid off, but you didn't get back to work, but your sick leave ended, but you were supposed to go back to work, but they had to put you on layoff because of the shutdown, then you will get unemployment benefit.
And if we had to receive that call or right at the BEC, we would advise the persons, if you are in receipt of the medical certificate with a stipulated end date and you are placing persons on layoff, allow the person to remain on sick leave. And then once the sick leave is slated to end and we're still going through or we're still on the national pause, then you can endeavor to place the person on layoff after that. I would not try to, muddy up the waters with trying to put them on layoff while they're still on sick leave. Keep it as clean as possible. Allow the sick leave to take its course and come to an end, and then transition to layoff.
I am seeing 2 raised hands. We'll have Kathy ask her question now, and after Kathy will be Pamela.
Just One, I confirm what Dylan says. I had that situation recently, let the person end their sick leave and then they went on layoff. But the question I have for Claudette is with reference, and this is something that is critical for the hospitality industry. I don't know if you can answer this, or is this a Labor Department question? That 26-week period where we're talking about the 16 and the 26 week, when does that 26-week period start? Is it from the time they would have initially been laid off, or is when they come back out to work? And that's something that for me, the legislation is not very clear on.
Okay. As I said, I am not the knowledge expert in terms of severance, but I am thinking that that 26 weeks starts from the initial layoff period. So when you initially lay them off, we look for that that's when the 26 weeks will start.
Thank you.
Good morning. I didn't want to ask a question. I just wanted to respond to the question where someone was asking if you can obtain your schedule from the online portal after it has been submitted. On the online portal, you can go to the earnings and the schedule submission. And if you say to pre-fill from previous period, you can say what period you're looking for, and it will give you the schedule that you would have submitted, and it has all the information you would have submitted to the NIS.
Well, thanks very much for your assistance with that one. I referred the question, but I haven't heard an answers yet. So thanks a lot.
You're welcome.
Yes, thank you for sharing that, Pamela. I'm sure many persons will take that advice from you. Okay, we have a query from, we would like to everyone just instead of placing your questions in the chat, can you put them inside of the Q&A section so that we can keep track of your questions and we wouldn't miss them actually. Okay, we have another query. Claudette, can you share the information on the payment plans? Okay, so we have a query from Yomi. She would like to know if the option for the payment plan contributions, can you repeat who should be contacted to organize such?
Okay, the compliance section where we have our inspectors are dedicated to doing that with you. So you can contact the compliance section, extension 1401 or 1402. And somebody there will guide you to the particular inspectors, because our inspectors are divided according to areas, and you can sit and negotiate with the inspector, and they will refer it to their manager, and that's basically what it is. There's a signed agreement. Obviously, you'll have to sign it. You'll have to keep certain things in certain conditions, but it's the inspector that you will deal with. So if you already know who your inspector is, you can contact them via telephone or email, and we can work from there.
Okay, thank you very much, Yomi. I hope that answered your question clearly.
Thank you.
You're welcome. We have another question here. If an employee is employed by the company on a short-term contract and his or her contract has ended, however, he is re-employed and due to diminished work, he or she has had to go on layoff, what would be the date employment commence be?
That should be the date of the original contract, the very first start date. If it is that we are finding that when we look at his earnings and we see that periods are missing, one of our officers will just contact that employee to find out if they did work during that period. But if the employer could be kind enough, he could also, in the relevant details, tell us the exact periods that will make our life a little bit easier. If it is that the person had interruptions in between.
Okay. All right. So we have Shanika. Shanika wants to know, when completing the NIS form, is it safe to the question was removed. I was reading the question for you. Okay, we have Renee. Renee answered that question for us. Thank you,
Oh,
Renee.
okay, okay.
Okay, yes. Okay, are there any other questions? You can feel free to raise your hand. If you need to make a comment on anything, then you can also raise your hand. Is there anything, Dylan, Siobhan, do you need to contribute anything at this point?
Leah,
Sorry, go ahead,
Hi,
Sheena.
Sheena.
no,
Yes,
no,
please.
I'll give away to Dylan
Oh,
first.
okay.
I'll jump in
Okay.
after.
All right, no problem.
No, I just was reiterating Siobhan's point, especially with the last question I was asked as it relates to the person on a short-term contract, and then the contract is coming to an end, because initially how I would have read that question with a start date, as Siobhan indicated, if you have a short-term contract for someone and the contract is broken for in excess of 42 days, then upon returning to work, then that person will have a new start date. So it will not be deemed, in the eyes of the Employment Rights Act or in the eyes of the law, it will not be deemed to be continuous employment, because it would have been a break of that contractual agreement. And therefore, the employee will now have a new start date. In the eyes from a legislative perspective, the person will now have a new start date. However, in the eyes of NIS's regulations, then Claudette would have definitely provided the clarity there. Over to you, Sheena.
That is exactly what I was going to reinforce. So that's fine. Employers, one of the things we've noticed at the BEC is that there is a need for employers to be consistent in terms of what they write on documentation regarding employment start dates and end dates. For the purposes of NIS, Claudette could jump in if I'm wrong, NIS doesn't care who you are employed with. So they don't care if the employment was for 3 weeks with one person, 4 weeks with another person, if you have successive short-term contracts, because NIS is going to look at the quarters and the number of contributions over those quarters.
Correct.
But for employers, now to ensure that if some person challenges a claim, if something goes to the Labor Department or before the Employment Rights Tribunal, you don't want to have your U3, your green form stating one date of employment, and you have a contract that states another date of employment. So we urge employers to ensure that your documentation remains consistent. If the person was terminated and they're brought back on a short-term contract, use the date of employment as a short-term contract date. What that will mean is, as Dylan highlighted, if the law is looking to deem if it's continuous employment or not, it will look at the length of breaks between those contracts, but you don't want to have inconsistent documentation of employment start dates. So just reinforcing what Dylan would have said previously.
Okay, thank you, Sheena. Okay, so we have another question. This one is a bit long. 8 years continuously. Okay, so if an employee has been employed for, say, 8 years continuously and takes unpaid leave for the national pause, if they're severed at the end of the year, am I correct in understanding that the NIS will look for a period of 52 weeks of continuous contributions when calculating unemployment benefit, and therefore the unpaid leave period where there was no NIS contributions will not affect their unemployment benefit?
Okay, the question is a bit long. Let's go over the legislation which speaks to qualification for unemployment benefit, because it says that there were unpaid leave during national pause. So let's say national pause is February, but then the person is asking if at the end of the year, which is December, if they become unemployed, then if they will qualify. If that's to break it down, that's what it's looking like to me. Right. So they're becoming unemployed in December because of whatever reason. In December, their relevant quarter, if they become, well, it depends on which part of December. If they, let's say they work the whole of December and they're becoming unemployed in January, with effect from the 1st of January. Their relevant quarter in January of next year will be July, August, September of this year. So provided that they work July, August, September, and they have 7 contributions in there, and also during the period January to September this year, they have 20 contributions, that person will qualify. So it's basically, we always have to remember, go back, remember what's your benefit quarter, remember what's your relevant quarter, look for 7 in your relevant quarter, and look for 20 in 3 quarters ending with your relevant quarter. Once you remember that rule, you will know if you qualify for the benefit or not. Whenever you become unemployed, think back, all right, I am now in February. This is the quarter, January, February, March. I don't want the one just before that. No, I'm not interested in October to December. I am interested in July to September. Let me look through there. Did I work for 7 weeks? Yes. Then I satisfy that condition. Then I look for 3 quarters ending with the relevant quarter. So I'm looking January to September. Did I work for 20 weeks in there, or did National Insurance pay me benefit for 20 weeks in there? And I use my calendar and I look, yes, I have more than 20 weeks. Good to go. Insured for 52 weeks. Have I been paying national insurance for a period of more than 52 weeks? Definitely, because I started paying national insurance since 2000. So I've been insured with national insurance for more than 52 weeks. Those are the rules that you have to look for whenever you're thinking of qualifying for unemployment benefit.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. All right, so guys, we have like 15 minutes remaining. So if you need to have anything else answered, or if you need clarity on anything that was within Claudette's presentation, you can please send that to us. Send those questions in, raise your hand. I'm seeing a raised hand.
Yeah, just see we have 2 raised hands.
Yes, okay. So we have a question from Melissa. You can unmute yourself and go right ahead. Afterwards is Margaret.
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. My question is for Claudette. At present, with the national pause throughout Barbados, I was wondering the process for employers and employees. I know that we would complete, that is if the company has decided to put their staff on layoff. I know that we would usually complete the layoff certificate. And in this circumstance, what we would have done would have been to submit the physical papers to NIS on the behalf of the employee. And I was also informed that the employee would need to, we've also sent the copy of the certificate to the employee electronically. And what we were advised is that the employee would also have to send that copy when they are completing their declaration form to the NIS. But on the other hand, it was also advised that when they do that, it becomes duplicated for the NIS personnel to process. So is it necessary for the employee to still submit that green paper, even though the employer would have done so on their behalf during this time?
Thanks, Melissa. That's a very relevant question, because we are having challenges with that, because we know that everybody does not know the process. 1, every employee, and 2, every employee is not au fait with the computer. I spoke to a lady up to yesterday. She said to me, email address, what is that? Are you coordinator? So, and I had to ask her to help somebody to help her to make one, because that's the way we're doing it. So what we have agreed is that when we get the green forms from the employers, we are processing a claim based on that. But we internally should be checking first to make sure that the employee has not done it as well. Because really and truly, the law says that the employer submits a form to us. That is for our record. That is not your employee making a claim. But it's in light of the current situation, we are accommodating that. But the correct method is that you email that form to the employee. That employee emails that form to employee u3forms@bginis.gov.bb. If they have access to a printer, they can print our application form and email it along with that. But we know everybody does not have access to a printer, so we will accept the employee submission of the form as his application. The employer's submission of the form is just our way of applying the regulation that says that the employer must submit the form to us, but that's not an employee's application. Employee makes his own application by submitting the form to employee U3 forms at bginis.gov.bb. 3 weeks after that application is sent in, because we will accept the form alone as a form of application, as an application form. 3 weeks after that, if the person is still unemployed, they go and they do the online declaration form, which says to the director, I'm still unemployed, still available for work, but there was none. I'm still in the island, and then we will pay you. If he goes back to work, the bottom section of the unemployment form, he will complete to tell us when he went back out to work and who he went back out to work with. So the employee should be submitting the form to employee U3 forms. That's the correct way to make an application for unemployment benefits.
Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I also see Sheena Mears.
Yes. I have a question I want to pose to Claudette.
Yes, please.
Claudette, this is regarding sick leave benefits. Now, initially last year, at the start of the pandemic, we were advised that sick leave benefits are only paid when persons are actually sick, and therefore only if persons were tested positive for COVID-19. However, recently we were informed that NIS does pay a benefit under a caption or a code that deals with exposure to a communicable disease. I just want to confirm that that is so, that persons can receive benefits, sick leave benefits, if they are exposed to a communicable disease, and which in this case, more prevalent now would be COVID-19, but also if there are any special processes required.
Okay, but that little one needs your attention. Anyhow, yes.
Yes, this is how work from home is going right now.
All right. Prior to this COVID pandemic, it is true, we had to have someone suffering. The law speaks to you must be suffering from a specific bodily or mental illness. So that is what we looked for in national insurance. Obviously, national insurance, I don't think anybody in the world ever envisioned something of this nature. So initially, there was some question marks concerning whether we pay for it or not. We have been paying and we have been honoring those claims where the people are in quarantine for whatever reason, whether they're exposed or their possible exposure, whatever the case may be. So we have been paying those claims.
Okay, so just to confirm, if some person is placed on self-quarantine because they're, say, a primary contact, so there's possible exposure, that person can be certified under and captioned under that exposure to communicable disease and receive a sickness benefit.
Yes, once the doctor says something to that effect, we are honoring those claims.
Okay, so thank you for that, because previously the employers and the BEC was told that that was not a possibility.
Well, it is true.
It have to be positive.
Initially, that is what it was, as I said, but because this is such a gray area for us, we were not sure what we were doing at first, but we are honoring those claims right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
All righty. As the Prime Minister would usually say, my friends, I have, and Claudia could always correct me if I'm wrong with this, but I remember your presentation, you spoke about the credited contributions and employers paying their employees while they're on sick leave. And if we still, as employers, submit the contributions on the behalf of the employee, that technically, you guys will not be looking at those contributions because you would have applied your credited contributions on the behalf of the employee, given the fact that the employee has been deemed to be incapable of carrying out work or working or incapable of working. Now, I'm not sure if it's out there or that much in the public domain, but I've tested the theory, and I want to advise employers that that you're laughing, you don't want me to disclose this part as yet?
No, you are free to disclose it because the law says that it can happen. It is just, as you said, it is not out there, but you go ahead and share it.
Yeah, so that's why I said Mike, because I'm sharing it with my friends now, right? So that's right. My friends.
Okay.
so what can happen is anytime an employee is paid while they are on sick leave and the contributions are still submitted, apparently the funds they go into this archive file or folder, or they just sit there awaiting either the employer or the employee to make a claim for reimbursement of the contributions that were paid. Now, that does not mean that you're not supposed to pay in the contribution, because if you pay in the contribution, but then what happens is either the employer or the employee, either one party, all two parties don't need to make the claim, but either party can make the claim to NIS. I've tried it on the portal myself and I've been successful and I received my check. You make that claim once it's within a 12-month period, right, Claudette? Is this 12 months? Right.
That's right.
Once it's within a 12-month period, you can make that claim. And once whichever party triggers that process, both parties would receive back the contributions that were paid for that period. So the employee receives their contribution and the employer receives their contribution. And I had some employers under my portfolio, and we frequently share it at BEC, where they would have tried it, and the finance department, they were able to recoup a substantial amount of funds, especially during these times we're looking at cost-cutting measures and trying to save. Every cent counts, or every dollar counts in these times, that they were able to recoup a substantial amount of funds for that 12-month period. So that's just a little insider information for the employers.
Yes, Dylan is quite correct. You can just write a letter to the director making a request for a refund of your contributions, and we will refund both parties.
Or also you can make the claim on the portal too, right?
Okay.
Because I made my claim on the portal, and both myself and
the employer got back.
Yeah.
Okay.
And the portal was very useful because they actually gave me the breakdown of how much I am entitled to receive back, and also how much the employer was entitled to receive. So it was very, very comprehensive.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Dylan. All right, so at this time, I actually will hand over to our Labor Management Advisor, Sheena Bradshaw, if no one has any other questions or comments to make. And she will give our closing. Yes, please, go ahead.
They're here. Just to let you know that, let the participants know that if there are any further severance questions, they can email them to us, because we didn't have the severance expert on today, and obviously our apologies for that. But they can email them to either my address, derek.low@bginis.gov.bb, or you can also send them to the customer service email, customer.service@bginis.gov.bb. Did you get that?
Yes. Did everyone get that email address? Well, those email addresses?
But I was just also going to add, failing that, and you did not get it for whatever reason, you don't feel free. You can send it to us at the BEC, and we can always filter the information over to you direct. So then instead of just sharing it with one person, then we could just share it with our entire membership, so everyone is on the same page.
Yeah, thanks for that, because we apologize for not having the severance expert on today. We know we had 1 or 2 questions on severance. Get those started out for you once you send them to us, and we'll respond as soon as we possibly can. So thanks.
Okay.
Greatly appreciated.
Thank you. And over to Sheena Bradshaw.
Thank you, Leah. That brings us to the end of our webinar today. We wish to extend a special thanks to Claudette Moore, our presenter, Renee Waterman, both Insurance Officer 2, and Derek Lowe, Assistant Director of the Customer Service Department at the National Insurance. Thank you for partnering with us again. and for sharing this much needed knowledge and information with us. We also want to extend a special thanks to Sheena Mears-Granville, our Executive Director, Dylan Downs, and Siobhan Cummins, Labor Management Advisors, and Leah Roach, Member Relations Officers of the organization team of the BEC. To our attendees today, a gracious thank you for your attention and participation in today's session. Just a reminder to our members that we at the BEC, we are working remotely and that we are still available and ready to assist you. You can reach out to your labor management advisor via their mobile or via email. Non-members, we can be reached via helpdesk@barbadosemployers.com, and that is all spelled out. We also want to remind and implore you to complete the surveys regarding the intended minimum wage, as your submission will directly inform the Confederation's position paper, which will be submitted to the relevant ministry. So once again, thank you for joining us. Do enjoy the rest of your day, and above all, be safe. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone, and stay safe. And feel free to contact us at the National Insurance for any questions as well.
Yes. Thank you so much, Claudette.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay.
Bye.